Hello, Cozy Detectives, and welcome to the Blanket Fort Files. I'm Joy,
And I'm Larissa.
and we're here to report on all things winter, comfy and cozy.
Hence our white.
And our white. We're both in comfy outfits. And it's so funny, I noticed because you moved your arms, we both rolled up our sleeveys
Yeah.
too.
These actually came pre-rolled. Like you can't unroll them. Yeah, it's kind of
Wow.
handy. But yeah, we're both in our little winter sweaters. We didn't
It's all
coordinate at
right.
all, which I love.
That actually happens to us somewhat frequently. I feel like I was just like, winter, I'm going to get a cozy outfit. And actually, the only thing that I'm not sure, I don't know if it's something wrong with my neck or what it is, but I feel like sometimes turtlenecks just go really wide on me. And I'm
Yeah,
like, I
I
don't know if it's a cut thing or what it is, but
I have a really hard time with turtlenecks too. I think just the claustrophobia of it all, of just like something onto my neck. I
around your
have
neck, yeah.
one shirt that's like a mock turtleneck, so it only comes
Hmm.
up a little bit, which I can do, but like a full. But sometimes I just want to do like a full big, like 90s turtleneck for the
Yeah.
vibes. But yeah, it's just like too much on my neck.
I totally get that. I totally get that. This one is like supposed to, it's part of a set that actually has shorts. That's the only thing that I guess it's like if you don't have a really, really cold place, but I don't pair the shorts with it ever because I get cold. So
I'm actually in shorts right now.
really?
Which
Oh,
it's
that's so
funny
funny.
because, like, outside, it's pretty cold, but I think a lot of times when it's colder outside, everyone around me likes to crank up the heater, so then I'm just, like, sweating,
Mm.
so I'm actually enjoying.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. Besides our outfits, how are you doing?
Yeah, doing it pretty well. It was recently Thanksgiving in our world, even though this will come out almost a month from now. We're getting back ahead of schedule, which is kind of nice on our
Yeah.
end of things, but it's pretty low key, nothing too
Good.
hectic. We ended up watching Little Women, which I was telling Joy before we recorded. I told my sister that you had never seen it, and she was just like, so stunned. So we came up with a plan for Joy to watch Little Women. So hopefully by the time this episode comes out, she'll have seen it.
Yes, the plan is because I also still have, which is a previous case file. I've never seen Eloise at the plaza at Christmas time. Is that how? Is that
it's
the phrasing
it's
of
I
it?
think technically just Eloise at Christmas time, but some people will
Oh,
throw at the plaza because the
yeah, the
first one
first
is
one.
Eloise at the plaza, which also might have been why you got confused when you were looking for pictures of it.
That's true. That makes more sense. But the plan is because Little Women has saddy parts in it, is to watch that and then
Yeah.
Eloise. Because I like literally woke up this morning and I was like, I need to watch Eloise, but I feel like that back to back might be the play because I
Yeah.
just don't want
Something a
to
little lighter to
be
finish off
sad.
on. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Which one's
Oh,
longer?
definitely Little Women. I think that
Mm,
one's over 2 hours,
yeah.
whereas I'm not sure of the exact runtime on Eloise, but I want to say it's less than an hour and a half.
Oh,
I
okay.
think
I mean,
maybe
that
like
makes sense. It
80-ish
was the made
minutes.
for that was a made for TV
Mm-hmm.
too, you said, right? Yeah, okay, I
Yeah.
thought so. Okay, well, at least I have a plan now because I'm feeling very much so in the spirit of Christmas because, again, being past Thanksgiving, I feel like I don't know, it just kind of clicks in, and then you're like, oh, like there is snow on the ground
Love it.
outside, and the house is decorated all minus still that one part of my garland. I sent Larissa a photo of like, I decorated. Don't look at this part of the garland. But I
Super
still need to do
cute.
that. But besides that, we are decorated. And today we were talking about kind of actually less Christmas and more winter, but how to have a cozy winter. Because the reason that we chose that is because I feel like everybody, I mean, for obvious reasons, we're going to too, but everybody talks about how to have a cozy Christmas. But I feel like winter, especially like if you get once you get past Christmas, feels I don't know if it feels harder to make cozy, but I know for me in the like January, February time of things, that's when it's hardest for me to feel cozy
Mm-hmm.
because in my brain I'm just like it should be spring and I should be like have more energy and my body's like you don't have that, like chill out. So,
Yeah, and that's kind of hopefully our focus will be more so of those basically post New Year's Day, how to
yeah.
still have that sense of merriment and joy. I actually recently saw a video online basically talking about how Christmas Day is almost the worst. Like he prefers Christmas Eve because there's still this like
Yeah.
build up and
The buildup.
excitement. And then you open all the presents, and then like Christmas afternoon, everyone just their mood kind of sinks. And it almost feels like, there's still that weird week after where no one really knows what day it is. You're just eating a lot of
Yeah.
food. But come January, there's not a whole lot to really look forward to.
Yep.
And so, hopefully, with some of these tips, like we've done with our past seasonal episodes, is to help bring that same excitement and joy that you find leading up to Christmas, kind of where we are right now, and holding on to
Yes.
that feeling through those harder, darker months that not a lot going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like it's kind of our tips, we will go back and forth, and we do have 10 tips and then our sub tips under that. But we kind of focus more, not specifically, but kind of on like the hygge side of it,
Mhm.
because I was tempted to put like, get ready for the next season. And then I was like, no, like I feel like that's something that like I personally struggle with, of just like wanting it to be the next season after that Christmas time. And I feel like our tips are really to help in that less literally like bright outside season to feel that cozy and to feel that warmth. Should we start getting into
Yeah,
them?
I think so. I think you're kicking us off first if you want
Yes.
to go for it.
My first tip is to have a winter focused spa day. This is something that I feel like is also just because, again, at altitude in the winter, it gets so dry.
Mm,
And so when I was thinking about ways that it would help be cozy, is to kind of have that like at home spa feeling of things. So I wrote down try like a new lotion or try a winter bath bomb, something where you've planned out for yourself that I feel like kind of like we talked about with travel tips, it's really easy to click in the mode of travel and go, 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 go and see all of the things, but it's also important to rest. And I feel like either leading up to Christmas where it feels like, oh my gosh, so we just have to like prep everything and do everything, or after Christmas where it can feel a little bit like that letdown or that confusion of time. Having a focused, rejuvenating type of spa day, I feel like could really help, and something that I'm not great at, honestly. I'm honestly, I'm more of a shower person than a bath person, but I feel like new lotions or new things that, like, bring the scent of the season in or something like that could really just help feel more luxurious.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I know kind of this goes into my tip. I know sometimes, the idea of a bath or a shower when it's really cold out is kind of daunting.
Yeah.
So my tip is to either, if you're able to spend a little bit more money, maybe invest in one of those towel warmers. You can put your towels
Ooh,
in there and they're nice and cuddly and cozy when you get out. Or
love.
just throw your towels into the dryer before you shower or take a bath, if you want a freer version. If you live in an area or house that has a radiator, you can leave your towels on there. Although, if you have a radiator, you probably already do that now. It was giving the spring break episode where Paris and Rory get wet and they like hog over who gets to dry their clothes out on the radiator. But overall, I really like that you put this tip on here. And I'm probably going to say that a lot because I just really want this to be something of looking for the little things come
Yeah,
January and February, because I think that's, the point of like our 2% is trying to be intentional with making the little moments cozier. And I think overall, with this list of tips, that hopefully we're giving you some excitement
yeah.
for those harder times, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I feel like it's that prep for yourself side of things, whether it's the like a focused spa day or some of the other items that we have on this. I think in the planning ahead, not being in the season planning towards spring, but now planning towards maybe when you're not feeling as excited in winter, I feel like that's where you can also really help yourself and it can really feel cozy because you're looking at that future self of yours that's maybe just chilling and it's like, okay, what can I do to make their day better?
Yeah, a little present for your future self.
Yeah, yeah.
So, my first tip, or tip number 2, is find cozy movement And this doesn't have to be where you start training for a marathon come the new
Yeah.
year, or even start like a hardcore workout program. That's going to also be kind of a reoccurring theme of you don't necessarily have to set a bunch of New Year's resolutions and completely 180 your life. Um, but with winter, while it's great to get cocooned and stay in bed and all of those cozy things, I think it's still important to move your body in a way that feels
Yeah.
right, in a way that feels good, which leads me into my specific sub tip. So there is a YouTuber, Yoga with Adriene, that I really
Mm.
like. She does a lot of adaptive yoga. So, depending on
Oh,
if you're
cool.
just a brand new beginner or if you're more advanced, she'll do variations of the poses. And she always starts the year off with 30 days where it kind of builds off of each other. And I haven't done the 30 days in a few years. So, I'm going to try to
That's
do
cool.
that come January of just
Yeah.
easy, simple movement, keep your muscles warm. Especially in the winter, we tend to eat a lot heavier, more indulgent. And so this is just a good way to like stay feeling good and fresh. Um, and again, preventing that quote unquote sluggish feeling that we can sometimes
Yeah.
feel in the winter.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like that's really good. Honestly, I was thinking of it of like we have the advent calendar that's coming up, and then maybe we could do that other the cozy yoga together too,
Yeah,
and
that
that
would
could
be
be like our
fun.
second version. Because I feel like that's the thing for me with working out is it feels easier. I mean, this is a little bit of just like very joy focused things, but it's easier to kind of like let myself down and be like, okay, I can just do that tomorrow versus be like, okay, I have to do this because Larissa's going to be like, hey, did you do this? You know what I mean?
Yeah, we can be little accountability partners.
Yeah,
That'd be fun.
accountability buddies for that. My tip in regards to this is I also also when it comes to walking or working out or anything like that, if I can kind of like trick myself into doing it, if that makes sense,
No,
I feel like
same.
it's right? So I was thinking about like going on a Christmas lights walk
Mm.
or going to because I feel like there's a lot of like movement things in the fall of like pumpkin patches and apple picking and things like that. But then in the winter, I mean, obviously there is some like obviously if you want to go like skiing and go all into it, your girl likes her knees, so that's scary to me. But doing things like that or, like, the botanic gardens in my area has a, like, lights display, and because I feel like you're kinda, like, tricking yourself into walking and doing those 30, 40 minutes of movement without it feeling,
Like a chore.
like a chore. Yeah, exactly. So that was my tip is to kinda,
Yeah.
like, trick yourself
I
into
love that. I
cozy.
almost put on there, like, a very Lorelai of have a walk in the first snow of the season, but for some
Cute.
people like you, that's already
Yeah,
happened,
she gonna
and
pass.
then people like me may not ever get that this year or this season, so, I left that off, but I think there is something where if you're in an area like me that rarely gets snow, when we do, it's always like, "Oh, we have to go out." Although some people
Yeah.
get very scared in Texas, like, the whole state basically shuts down, like,
Oh,
school
I'm sure.
closes, people get off work, but I think there is something special about bundling up and just kind of going for a walk, so
Yeah.
if you live in an area that gets snow a lot, I encourage you to romanticize it at least once. And
Yeah.
if you live in an area that doesn't tend to get snow, if you do experience it, to really enjoy it while you have it.
Yes, and the one little pro tip I will say now coming from a place that didn't have snow to a place that does have snow, wear proper footwear, which sounds like
Mhm.
such like a grandma thing to say, but your girl was wearing moccasins once and slipped.
Aw.
I might even have said that on here, but, like, I literally slipped and fell on my butt, and
Aw.
I was like, "Oh, that's why people wear, like, fancier shoes." I
Yeah,
don't know,
it's like
I've never
not to keep
realized.
quoting Gilmore Girls, although I feel like people that are listening are here for that, but in Love, War, and Snow, and she says that saddle shoes are not meant for snow.
Exactly, yep, saddle shoes and moccasins, not meant for snow at all. My I guess we'll just say like the third tip is I was thinking about it in adding color. So I feel like fall has all this beautiful color, and winter obviously does also have beautiful color of like the snow covered and the sparkly snow. But I think thinking about it more in the January, February side of things, it can feel less magical once you're like, okay, Christmas has passed. And so what are ways that it can still feel magical? And I was thinking about it in like adding color. So It's so funny that we're both wearing white too, because I'm saying we love this color too. So it's nothing against like if you love more monotone clothing, but I was thinking like adding like fun colors. Yesterday, I wore my pink Lorelei jacket, and I felt like that was just like such a fun thing. I don't know. It feels very simple to say, but I think when it can feel a little bit dreary outside, especially if you're at a place that isn't very bright in the winter,
Mhm.
just being the brightness in the winter can be a nice contrast. So that was my sub tip, is focus more on color in your
I
wardrobe.
love that. Yeah, I have seen a lot of discourse in the last few years of just overall there's less color in the world, which is just kind of
True.
sad to think about.
Yeah.
We it was so funny after Joy and I recorded our last episode, we planned out kind of our episode themes up until the end of February, which I'm so excited. We have some really
Me
good
too.
ones planned. But sneak peek, one of them is specifically about something 90s related, more specifically a physical thing rather than media. And like right after on Instagram, I got a reel about it, which is just kind of creepy because we had not talked about it in a long time and it was very much listening. But
Right there.
it was like a 90s Bath and Body Works, and it used to have the bright like
So
gingham. Yeah,
colorful.
super colorful. And
Yeah.
now brands just lean into that very like neutral coloring. And I get it if that's what people are gravitating towards now, but it's
Oh
just,
yeah.
it's sad. And like they have the millennial gray, which I also saw a recent thing of is kind of a misnomer of it's not
Oh.
necessarily millennials that are choosing the gray. It's more of
Yeah.
like Gen X and people above us. It just happened to be as we were getting our own spaces and what was
Yep.
like available in stores to us to buy.
Yep, that's always been my complaint with it is I'm like, "Okay, well, I wanted a tan, pretty, like, headboard, but only option was gray."
Yep.
So I'm like, "Well, that's what I had."
Yeah. So I think just overall bringing more color into your life is always good, but like you said, specifically in a season where things are kind of dead outside, it's not a lot of
Yeah,
brightness. My specific sub tip is to leave your Christmas lights up a little bit longer or just any decorations you
love.
want. Because I think some people are like, December 26th, everything comes down, or January 1st, everything comes down. And this kind of went back to my tip in our cozy Christmas tips of leaving or putting your decorations up when you want and taking them down. And you don't necessarily have to have all of the ornaments and the very like Christmas
Yeah,
specific things, but I think leaving up your twinkle lights, leaving up your tree with just the lights leaves that sense of merriment that we're trying to cultivate in these harder months of just
yeah.
having that, I don't know, extra little bit of sparkle and color if you have the more colorful lights. And this was something too that I don't necessarily have ideas for people yet, but if our cozy detectives do, I'd love to hear them. We obviously have fall decor, Halloween decor, Christmas. We don't really have just winter decor. And I think that could be another way to help you feel a little bit more special during winter. So if you have winter decor that you would like, let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like that's also the kind of the hygge side of things too, of bringing nature kind of vibes inside. It is just what kind of like one of the aspects of it, but I feel like yeah, because you could even like kind of redecorate or decorate a little bit differently, or
Mhm.
have you don't have to take down like all the ornaments, but if it's like very Christmas specific ornaments, you could take those down and then leave the more kind of like neutral ornaments up. I like
Yeah.
that. I feel like that's also very I don't know that sparkle when it's really dark outside. I feel like is really nice
Yeah.
for
And
sure.
just because
Outside.
quote unquote the holiday is over doesn't mean all the decorations have to come down. If it makes you
Yeah.
happy and brings you joy, then leave it up.
Love it. Speaking of joy, let's talk about little joy.
Yes.
My Oh no, this is your tip.
Yes.
Oh, I
All
loved it
good.
though. I was gonna take it from you. I was in
It's
it.
so good. But yes, let's talk about Little Joy and Little
Yeah.
Larissa because our next tip is to connect with your inner child. And I think this is something you do a lot during Christmas time. Like there's so many traditions and things.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, you're just like, put that aside. But I think if
Yep.
you intentionally do something to make the little you happy, I think is
Yeah.
really special. So my sub tip was to do an activity that you loved as a kid and maybe haven't done in a while. Maybe you make a blanket fort like we've talked
Cute.
about and our namesake. Maybe you go ice skating and ice your knees afterwards.
Oh, right, honestly. Oh, that's cute. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I feel like it's not, you could be childlike and not childish, and I feel like
Mhm.
that's a thing that people, it can be easily confused of, like, having, I mean, honestly, to go back to the slime of everything, that I bought a second one because the first ones, I don't know, it just was not the vibe that I was
Aw.
looking for. But I feel like it's things too where it's like, okay, well, it can be like a focus thing or it can be other things. It doesn't have to be a childish thing if you just want, like, to have a hobby, or I don't know. I'm not 100% saying that right, but my kind of thought process of this was also, I don't remember the last time I, like, was really excited about, like, Saturday morning cartoons.
Aw.
And I remember doing this last year. I think it was when we were decorating. It was just kind of happenstance of trying to find something to watch, but I didn't want to watch a full movie. And it was on Disney, obviously not sponsored, but it was on Disney Plus, but they had those like Chip and Dale and Bugs Bunny and type of cartoons. And we just ended up watching like a bunch of them because you reminisce on the past times of things, or like Tom and Jerry, just kind of those cartoons that you had as a kid, and creating a Saturday morning specific cartoon morning. Whether you have kids, that would be really fun. A good way to introduce them to something that you loved as a kid, or just having, I don't know, making brunch at home
Yeah.
and having your mimosa and then watching your Saturday morning cartoon. I feel like just the joy of that. And specifically for me, the Christmas ones are the ones that stand out the most. I think it's also just because for me, Disney feels very magical at Christmas time. And so having those elements throughout is just really, it's really fun. And it was nice to be like, oh, I haven't seen this since I was like 10 or something
Yeah.
like that. So finding some of those cartoons was
Yeah.
really
It's
fun.
funny you mentioned brunch at home. We actually recently did that because
Oh,
there's a couple of bars that we like going to. Um, Ones that I mentioned in our cozy travel episode, and they're really known for espresso martinis. But I'm a kind of person where I cannot have like any caffeine past like 10 a.m., which I know we're on that. But I'm always like, I want an espresso martini because I know they're very like popular and trendy. So we made them at home during brunch
cute.
so that I could have one before it got too late for caffeine.
I love that. I'm not gonna lie, I've never even had one because of that. I just had this fear that I would be awake, or that the coffee just wouldn't be the coffee that I wanted.
Yeah.
Is it literally just like a martini, but then you add espresso? Is that like,
Not quite, because a martini is really just, gin or vodka, depending on which kind you want, and then vermouth, which vermouth is really just a type of wine, really.
oh,
You can have sweet vermouth or dry vermouth. I'm not a huge fan of like just a martini. Like I have to have at least like some lemon juice just because a martini, I know it looks really classy, but it's just straight like I don't know, like you're
like liquor, pretty
yeah,
much?
yeah, it's definitely straight like rubbing alcohol is the vibe that I'm getting. And maybe,
Oh,
if you splurge and get really good quality alcohols,
yeah.
but I think traditionally an espresso martini is vodka, espresso, and then like coffee liqueur. I added a
Hmm.
little bit of cream and hazelnut into ours just because
Ooh,
I
that
don't
sounds
like
good.
black coffee, and so I was like, "This is essentially boozy black coffee. No, thank you." But because you drink your coffee black, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a hospitality. It's so funny. Okay, one other Gilmore Girls thing, but when she just is always drinking coffee and it's always black coffee, I always thought that was so gross when I first watched it because I was like, ugh. But then I think it being like hospitality itself was what took me from the more like not flavorful, because I think the flavor of coffee is the obviously the thing that I love about it, but adding extras to just black coffee because you're just kind of in survival mode. And so at first you're just like, whatever coffee is near me, I will drink it. I don't care. But then you kind of start developing the palate for it. And so yeah, now all of my coffees, every time you see me drink it, I'm afraid to spill it. But yep, that's a black coffee
Cute.
just chilling in there. But
Love it.
yeah. Did you finish the recipe, or did I cut you off with my Gilmore
No,
Girls story?
that's
Okay.
essentially all it is. But yeah, we made ours a little bit fruitier, fluffy, not fruitier, but a little bit fluffier.
Yeah.
Um, we didn't have any like actual coffee beans because our grinder broke a while ago, so we've just been buying the ground stuff. But traditionally, there's 3 coffee beans on top for the garnish.
Oh, cute. I feel like, yeah, that makes sense. That's always the photo that I see.
Yeah.
My next, or our next tip is explore seasonal comforts. So this was kind of tricky because at first, I think just because the seasons can be so close to me, Larissa was like, "You have the same tip that you use." I was like, "Oh, oops, LOL." But I think it's in thinking about it again, more of winter, less of Christmas. I added the my tip to be like layer your space. So I was kind of thinking of it in the hygge side of things, where in the summer and the spring, it makes me feel like I want like less in the house or something. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? It's kind of like that decluttering. You want to have like plants and focus on the garden outside, but I feel like when it's really cold outside, I want to like feel like the house is a cocoon. And so in layering your space, now don't go get another throw blanket if you already have 40 throw blankets, because I definitely have a basket of throw blankets. I am that millennial, I guess, with the blankets on the floor in the basket. But I feel like even changing out your pillows or having specific seasonal items that you bring out and it feels more wintry, I feel like helps me also to have that cozy aspect of things, because if it's still like the spring or summer pillowcases, I feel like it kind of messes with me a little bit in like feeling that type of a different type of comfort in
Yeah.
winter.
Yeah. And this is not to say you have to go and buy new pillows or new
No.
blankets, like she said, but
Yeah.
like we've talked about before with like the heated blanket, and maybe you just
Yeah.
have like a different set of blankets that you put out, or the ones on the
Yeah.
bottom of the basket that you don't use as much as something
Yeah.
extra special. But yeah, I really love that. For mine, I leaned more on the food side of things as I do. But there is something that I love. If I'm going to have soup, which I know I've talked about before, I love,
Love.
I prefer to have it in one of those giant like soup mugs. Like think Rory and Lorelai and the promotional photos of A Year in the Life, like those really massive ones. Because I think there's just something extra warm and comforting about like holding the mug. You get a little bit of that warmth on your hand.
Yeah.
The,
I
the
thought you were saying bread bowls. I read that totally wrong, because I love a bread bowl too in
No, those are good
winter.
too. But yeah, I'm not making you try to hold your breath.
Hold your soup bread.
Oh, yeah. But so again, don't feel like you have to go out and buy a new set of bowls if you don't already have them. But I think if you just think about this and really all of these tips of how can you look at what you already have in maybe a new way. So maybe you have
Yes.
a coffee mug that's a little bit on the larger side. What if you flip that and used it for soup and try that out?
Yeah.
So we're not saying like go out and buy a bunch of new stuff, but
Yep.
looking at what you have and embracing it for maybe a new purpose or a new way to kind of breathe that like new life into what you own.
Yes, love that. And even if you want to have just like a fun winter project, I've sewed pillowcases. I use those as a 2% way back in the day at this point. But I feel like that's also fun too. And that's kind of cozy and you're creating it for your space. So it's kind of like that DIY home aspect of things too. That could be really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of sort of leans into my next tip, which is to start a new cozy challenge or maybe a new cozy hobby instead of resolutions. So, like I said earlier, I feel like the move is always I need to completely change my life at the start of the year. And I need to start doing all of these things and set all these resolutions. And then come like end of January, we've abandoned them. So I think this should be more of maybe it's something you already enjoy doing and you're going to set a new challenge with that. So something I like to do every year is to find a new reading challenge that I'll try to complete for the year because I know I'm already going to read. So what is a goal I can set that's still cozy? That's something I feel like I can actually complete versus I'm going to go and run a
Yeah.
marathon or give up carbs when I know that's not something I'm going to
Yeah.
do. So we did do a little summer reading challenge. So maybe I will put together some sort of
Yeah.
cozy reading challenge for us and the cozy detectives.
Ooh, I love that. And I feel like also when it comes to resolutions, I personally would rather do either like a couple things per month or per season versus January 1st because again, it's like that spike in like I'm gonna do all the things, and then like you were saying, like by the end to the mid of January, if we haven't gone to the gym every single day or
You
something
feel
like
like
that,
a
you just feel like a
failure.
failure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, weird jinx there. But but I feel like again, just putting those small steps in, it really by the end of the year, if you do something very small throughout each day or each week or each season, you really do end up in a different place in a really beautiful way versus feeling like a failure if on day 12 you were like, I don't feel like working out because my legs hurt or whatever it
Yeah.
is. My in a totally not workout way, but in starting a cozy challenge, I was thinking about it in a way of like, how would you complete this challenge? And I like having little areas for things. And
Yeah.
so I was thinking of it like if you were wanting to sew more or you were wanting to do something like that, creating a hobby station. And maybe it's something that's portable. Maybe it's something that if you have a reading nook, you just add like a little table or a little basket under the table of your hobbies that are easily accessible. So you can just kind of knit or do whatever when you can, or putting it in a place that you're more likely to use it. Because I feel like maybe if you put it, I mean, don't trip yourself in the middle of the night, but if you put it like next to the bed or if you put it like next to the couch, something where I don't know if it's like an object permanence thing for me or what, but sometimes I'll be like, oh yeah, I forgot to do that craft or oh, I meant to do that thing, but I didn't see it. So having it more in my visuals helps me to remember to do the thing, or like when you're watching TV you can just like knit or play with your slime or whatever you were going to
Yeah,
do.
no, I'm the same way. And I'm also really bad about starting a new hobby or craft and getting like all of the supplies for it, doing it for like a couple days, and then it goes into the void of past me versions of me. So yes, definitely keeping it in your line of vision. And the idea of calling it like a station almost reminds me of like in kindergarten where we had centers.
Yeah.
And I think there's something fun about that. And it also goes back to the tip of connecting with your inner child. And if
Yes.
you want like dream hobby space goals, there's a
Ooh.
creator. I know, Joy, you know about her, but for cozy detectives don't. It is cozy.games, and she has like a
Yeah.
full cozy hobby room and this like massive chair, and she's always doing little tours of it. So definitely give her a follow because it's like the ultimate cozy hobby space for sure.
Yeah, she's really good at that. And she also tends to move around things when she feels like it or with the season or with decor. And I feel like that's fun too
Hmm.
because you're allowing the space to change if you also change or you feel like changing it.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
yeah, I love that. In a very similar vein, the next tip is to unplug from technology. I think that sometimes when we're inside, it's really easy to kind of either doom scroll or sink into like specifically more so your phone because I think that's an easy thing to kind of like accidentally push time.
Hmm.
And I know that for me, it's an accidental thing that will happen.
Yeah.
So I was trying to think of ways that during winter, it can kind of create those memories without it just kind of the time passing, if that makes sense. So I, with a few of my tips were either plan out ice skating, like you had talked about earlier. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's fun, ice skating, or a morning coffee out, something that's like you go to the library or something that's again maybe more focused on no tech. So you could bring lunch, go to the library, get a book, and then go to the park. And I feel like that's it, this is my personal opinion, but that feels like more of a day well spent than sitting at home. Now, again, if you have health issues or if you're just not feeling it, that's fine. But at least kind of planning ahead for that unplugging of technology versus just allowing the weekend to like pass you by, I think is a really easy thing that can happen.
Yeah, and I also like where if it's a specifically planned outing, I think that also
Yeah.
helps in that idea that we have been talking about of bringing the joy and the excitement post Christmas.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I'm going to do this special thing, and it's something to look forward to. Um,
Yes. Yes.
Mine is something that I've tried and always struggle at, but I think if you can find other ways of incorporating it, it may be a little bit easier. So mine is to try meditating. I've tried with like those guided meditation apps, and I always find that my thoughts go elsewhere. So maybe rather than just trying to sit there in the silence where that can almost be really hard and not always calming, to maybe you put on like an ambient playlist and that's your background noise for like cleaning or something. And so it doesn't have to be this like overwhelming,
Yeah.
a pump up playlist or an audiobook or a podcast, although you can also listen to ours as well while you're cleaning, but just something a little bit more calming to kind of recenter yourself, I think is good, especially after that hustle and bustle of the holidays. You just kind of need something to
Yeah.
decompress. And I think we tend to just lie in bed scrolling on our phones, but there's ways to still decompress in ways that aren't going to suck all of the time away if you just scroll on your phone.
Yeah, and the thing that I personally noticed, sometimes it depending on, like, what you're looking at, if you're, like, enjoying it, but then sometimes if you're like, "Okay, I'm gonna watch this to decompress," it, like, doesn't work, and
Yeah.
then you're still just as like, "Ah, I can't."
Yeah.
But I feel like for me, when I don't know, it's almost even like if you're on your computer, you have to, like, look really far to try to just, like, allow your eyes that rest. I feel like allowing your brain that rest of less technology also is good too.
Yeah, for sure. Love it. Sorry, I got lost on our list.
You're fine, I tried to take your kid one
No, I
earlier.
love that you were highlighting it, and I was like, "Oh, no."
I know, I'm
So
like, "This is mine, don't steal Larissa's."
so the next tip is connect with friends. And I had originally put this as express gratitude, which I think you can still incorporate that. But when I saw both of our sub tips were like specifically for friends, I was like, you know what? I really want to change this to connecting with friends because I think there are ways to express gratitude in that sense. But I think post the holidays, we tend to become kind of
Mm,
recluses and hermits. And again, this
yeah.
whole notion of this entire episode is how to fight that. And I think setting specific time with people you enjoy spending time with, and maybe you had to do a lot of family time during the holidays and maybe you don't get along with your family. So going back and focusing on your friends or people you want to spend your time with, and maybe it is your family, maybe you love your family and this is
Yeah.
how you can also enjoy that time. But I think being intentional and planning things together, and maybe it's doing some of the other tips that we've talked about already previously. So
Yeah.
like, I'm so excited that Joy and I are going to do the 30 days of yoga together, even though we don't live near each other. Maybe you do the inner child day with a friend,
That'd be fun.
or you unplug technology with a friend and you do that morning coffee out with a friend. I think just being really intentional and trying to focus in on friendship time during these winter months, I think is really helpful. But I put for my sub tip to either bake treats for your friends or neighbors, or maybe you could even bake treats together.
Cute.
Um, and this kind of goes against that like post holiday like indulgence, but I think, we tend to do all of the baking for Christmas and then come January, that's like done and over with. And so, again, to just continue
Yeah.
that sense of joy and excitement that you can still have holiday cookies or baked treats come January and February. Like, you don't have to just do the Valentine's candy. So, I think spending some time baking or doing the baking yourself and then sharing it with your friends is another way to kind of continue that sort of Christmas spirit.
Yes, I love that. I don't know how I didn't remember this, and I had a not a similar tip, but when you said about, like, for your friends' neighbors, I was like, "Oh, yeah, I forgot." It was a few years ago, but I hosted, like, a cookie exchange in where we live, so, like, everybody brought their cookies, and you could, like, either decorate for kids. I think I had, like, a decorating station for cupcakes if the kids wanted to do that, if there were kids coming. There's, like, one little kid, and I'm like, "Well, you better start decorating because we got a lot of stuff to do." But it's just having something like that. So my tip was to plan a Friends Day of either like a murder mystery vibes kind of like day where everybody like has their own different personalities of things. I thought that
Yeah.
could be fun. Or a coffee shop at your house, which I know I've said before. Or I was thinking a fondue
Ooh,
party
yeah.
because I feel like that's very wintry. And I got gifted actually it was a charcuterie board. I don't know why I said fondue. I guess fondue just like made more sense in my brain. But I got gifted like a charcuterie board tips book. And so I feel like you could like just like open the page and then be like, "Okay, this is what we're gonna do today. We're gonna do this charcuterie board, whatever it
Yeah.
is." And that could be really fun. Or hosting like a cookie exchange.
Yeah,
That was
definitely.
really cute.
We did fondue for New Year's Eve a few years ago, and it was definitely good,
Ooh,
cozy, warm vibes. But you mentioned the like opening a cookbook. I've seen a couple people doing this online, and I want to do it so bad next year of having what they call cookbook club. And so you, as someone who
cute.
collects them, I was like, this is sounds so fun. But you get together with your friends and you just make a recipe from a cookbook and you just kind of rotate throughout the year. So
That's fun.
I think
That's kind of like your own little sur la table,
yeah,
you know?
exactly. Ugh, love the vibes.
Cute. I love that. The next tip is to slow down your pace. And so again, I feel like it's allowing yourself that rest period in the season where your body's really wanting to rest anyway. It's kind again, I say this a lot, but I think it's just because there was years and years and years where I didn't really think about it this way. And then it was last year. I literally saw one reel. So I mean, sometimes scrolling can work. I saw one reel and it worked. And I was like, oh yeah, duh. Because I was kind of in that mindset always of, okay, January, like, let's get to it. It's the beginning of the year. But then I'm like, no, it's the middle of winter. Like clearly my body is tired for a
Yeah.
specific reason. Like the flowers are not blooming because they're tired too. So give it a break. So I was thinking of in slowing down, having a wrapping presents day, something where I feel like for me in the past, as also somebody who's not the greatest present wrapper,
Me
I'm
neither.
not I don't know. I don't know what it is. It's like the shapes or something. But I get like overwhelmed trying to be like, okay, I need this to be good. Or it's like the night before and I'm just like, wrap everything. But if I can just kind of have that escape, and then I really do want to do the tip that I said in a previous episode about doing the gift tags with like the stamped names, just something where it's creating it's not as stressful and it's kind of slowing down the pace. It's putting on the ambient or ambient. I was going to say ambient.
Oh, I
I don't
love
know
it.
why.
It sounds fancy.
I know. Or like the record player, I feel like is a really fun way to combine multiple things about like it's slower technology, it's slowing down your pace. It's just kind of sitting there enjoying it versus feeling stressed about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Mine was creating a cozy bedtime ritual, and this kind of
Mm.
harkens back to the winter focus spa day, but it doesn't necessarily have to be about like the spa aspects of it. It could just be I'm going to read 30 minutes before bed, or I'm
Yeah.
going to not be on my phone the hour before bed. So I think just like finding something to help signal to your brain like this is nighttime. Like I
Yes.
know you're
We're
2%.
winding
Yeah, you're
down.
2% recently, maybe not so recently, but you had like the light timer where your lights come on.
Yes. I love that
So
thing.
good. So that's kind of something I've been trying to do. I actually, our Friends episode inspired me to start rewatching Friends. So I've been doing that. I'll watch like
Aw.
an episode or two before bed. I have my Christmas tree lights on, my little candle warmer. I do a little bit of crocheting. And so it's just like, this is my, it's time for bed
Yes.
activities. So if you don't have any sort of cozy bedtime ritual, I think wintertime is the perfect time to start that because that is something you can easily incorporate into the warmer seasons. But I think because it starts to getting dark so early that you can start those bedtime signals a lot sooner if you want to have a
Yes.
full long routine.
Very true. Yeah, 4:30 to 5 here right now is
Wow.
when but I that's also where I really like the lights going on automatically because I feel like it brings the sparkle, so where it's not as like, "Oh, it's dark." It's like, "Oh, and my lights are on."
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Absolutely.
I love
I
that.
saw a reel recently as well, kind of talking about this because, like, I love daylight savings time. I know, like, a lot of people, this is where their seasonal depression kicks in, but this is where I feel like I
Yeah.
come alive. Versus like in the summer, I'm like, oh, it's so hot, I don't want to do anything. But I also realized part of it too, because he was like, no, there's absolutely nothing wrong if I want to put on a movie at 6 p.m. because it's already dark out versus in the summertime, it's 6 p.m. and it's super sunny and people are going to judge me if I'm watching a movie at night. So this is why I like daylight savings time.
That's funny, I never thought of that. Yeah, I'm the boo, it's dark at
Yeah.
4:30, but yeah, I do agree with that though, because it does make you again, it's that feeling like I have to be out and doing things
Hmm.
versus like, okay, I can cocoon
Right.
more a little
Exactly.
bit. So that makes sense to
Yeah.
me.
And then this kind of goes into our last tip, which is to romanticize the winter season. So, like I said, I love winter. It's my favorite season. I like when it gets darker outside because I think you can just do all of the more cozy things, which I love. But my
True.
specific tip for this is to do something cozy by either candle or firelight. So, if you're able to have a fire, do that, or just have your candle going or a candle warmer if you're scared of fire like we are. Um, I obviously love reading by candlelight, and I think it just kind of harkens back to a time where they didn't have TVs and phones and stuff, and they just kind of had to slow your pace, as we talked about in the last tip. So I think just doing something that really makes this time of year feel all the more special, which I said is kind of our goal with all of these tips. But I think if you do it with intention to say, hey, this
Yes.
is winter, this is cozy season, I'm excited for it, I get to do all these cozy things and just enjoy the slower pace, I think you'll find you'll feel a lot better about the January and February times.
Yes, yes. I'm actually on the spot gonna change my tip to just that, which is reframing the season because I feel like again, when I was and I think I still am very like goal oriented and go, go, go with things, but I think allowing my brain to realize, okay, this is the winter season where my body already is going to naturally want to rest more. And it's okay to do that, not to push myself because in the summer when my body is also like, yeah, let's go. It's like it makes more sense. Not makes more sense, but it's more natural to me to go more in the summer and then to rest more in the winter and not try to force my body to also go more in the
Yeah.
winter. Is how I'm like me personally, it's helped me romanticize the season more because I'm not trying to force myself to be just as productive as I am in the summer because that just doesn't make sense for the way that my body works just naturally with like the rhythms of things. I did have soothe your senses was my tip and I think that that does play into this as well of just allowing yourself to again it's that exhale, it's that like lean into the coziness of the season. If you want to watch a movie at 6 p.m., do it. I mean, do that again in summer
Yeah.
too. But I totally get that. And I do love all of the twinkle lights. It's really helped me a lot. I mean, again, it's before Christmas as we're recording this. So I'll let you know in a couple months. But as of right now, it really has helped because I get to be like, oh, let's turn on the extra twinkle lights because I feel like I said this on here. I don't know if I said this on here actually, but I have my Christmas tree which has the little like foot press, which is also pro tip, do that because you don't have to plug it in every single time. But then I have twinkle lights behind the TV, I have twinkle lights on the garland that's near that area, and then I also have another garland over the kitchen window, and I feel like the twinkle lights on that too, I feel like all of that just helps make it feel more magical and
Yeah.
special. And I think that is also romanticizing the winter season in a small way, but and honestly kind of a big way because I do have twinkle lights up year round, but not to that
Mhm.
extent.
Yeah, it's extra special. And then this is just a little plug. I will have
Hmm.
a cozy winter playlist on our Spotify when this comes
Yay!
out. So we have quite a few little cozy playlists that coincide with a lot of our episodes. So if you haven't checked us out over there, and you're on Spotify, be sure to do that. There's all kinds of good little cozy vibes. So there will be one specifically for winter as well.
Love it, love it. I was listening I can't think of the I think it's when so this is in the holiday because I was listening to I feel like it was our playlist that had the song that Jack Black like hums when they're in the
Hmm.
blockbuster. I had never seen Driving Miss Daisy or still haven't seen Driving Miss Daisy. So in my brain, I had never connected like I guess I'd never heard the song or I don't know
Hmm.
what it was, but I heard it on the playlist and I was like, wow, he does such a good job. And then I was like, dang it, I want him to have hummed Larissa's song.
Yeah, right, and that was I had the same thought when I was listening to it because I put all of those or most of them on there. I didn't do Jaws because I was like, "That's not cozy vibes," but has, like, the Gone with
Understandable.
the Wind theme, the Driving Miss Daisy, The Graduate, and, like, Jack Black does them exactly right. Chariots of Fire, I'm like, "Wow,"
Oh,
he literally
good.
I don't even know if he did prep where he, like, listened to it beforehand and then did it or just that was off the cuff, I don't know, but Jack Black did a very
Yeah.
good job.
Such a good
Jack
job.
Black, if
Such a
you're
good
listening to
job.
this, great job.
That'd be so amazing. He'd be like the best guest.
I
That'd be so
know.
awesome. But speaking of romanticizing and aspects of that, Larissa, what is your 2%
Yes.
cozy for this
So
week?
mine has been a little new hobby that I've started and kind of
Ooh.
obsessed over. So I actually saw this on TikTok like probably over a year ago and just finally decided to start doing it. And it is where you make custom dust jackets for your books.
Oh,
So that way,
cool.
like, obviously, I'm not gonna do my entire bookshelf because that would be very expensive, but just some of my favorite ones. So I've done a few art designs on Canva, and then I printed off 2 just to make sure I was, like, doing it right, and I'm going to do it with, like, higher quality paper when I, like, do the majority, but this is what they look like.
That
And
is
they
so
back
cool.
and you do little flaps inside
The
with
covers.
quotes from it. So I
Wow.
wanted, um, I don't know. I obviously love colorful books, but I think there's just something nice of them all kind of going together. So this is my
Yeah.
Daisy Jones and the Sixth one, and I use pictures like from the show, obviously, but very
That's so
been
cool.
enjoying working on that.
Ooh, I love that. That also gives me vibes of so one of the ways that I decorate my TV area is on the left side typically. I'll change out the DVDs that I have
Mm,
displayed on the season, and I feel like you could do that too. Like,
yeah,
if you have a specific area to display those books, you could change them for the season, or you could just have, like, all of them in that vibe in one
yeah,
area.
for
That's
sure.
really cool. I did see that, but I didn't know that you so I guess I saw that you had made them, but in my brain, I was like, "Wow, those look so, like, crazy professional." Like, I don't know how is it a template that you use, or how
No,
did you do that?
so basically what the tutorial said, you measure out your book essentially. So let me take this off, but this is what it normally
Ah.
looks like. And then you measure the cover and the height, obviously, and then the spine. And then I do mine in centimeters just so I can try to get it as exact as possible so
Mm.
it'll fit right. And then on Canva, you have the option to create a custom size. So you just do
Oh,
it.
cool.
You have to add a few inches on for the flaps, but you basically just do a custom size on Canva. And then I just find all of the pictures on Pinterest. And
That's
then,
so
like,
cool.
probably there's some like copyright rules, but I'm like, this is just for myself. So
It's personal
no
use.
one's going to come
Yeah.
for me. Um, yeah, and I just like play around with the different things on Canva until I like how it looks. And
I
then
love
you can
that.
order printing through Staples, and it's like $1 a
Cool.
piece to print, even on the higher quality paper. But with the fancier paper, they only do shipping. So I'm trying to make enough covers so that I can get free shipping.
That's so
Yeah,
cool.
so that's kind of the behind the scenes of how I do it.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I don't think I think it's because I am not on typically the book talk side of things, but I've never seen those. So you're the first person that I've
Good.
seen do that, and
Fun.
that's
And
so
now
fun.
you mentioned the DVDs, and I bet because it's just a matter of like measuring out, if you still have all of your DVD cases, you could probably do it with those too and just like slide them in.
Yeah. I could finally have a cover for that one Miss Congeniality that's just chilling in her own like nothing case.
Yeah.
But oh, I love that. Mine is it's something that I've had for a while, but I haven't like used in a while, and it's a siphon coffee
Ooh,
maker.
okay.
So it looks like a science experiment because you have the base and then there's like a top that goes into it. You have to light with a
Oh,
flame
wow.
underneath. And then you heat up the water and then you make the coffee at the top and the water gets pulled up to the top. And then after it cools off a bit, it drops down to the bottom
Mm.
again. It's really cool, but
Yeah.
it is quite time consuming. And so I just haven't done it in the longest time. But this morning I did, and
Fun.
it's delicious. It is a very different flavor than like a pour over or something like that or a V60, but it was just something that was like a little bit extra because there's a little bit extra time this morning, and I just felt like again, it's that slowing down of things. I think just because it's kind of habit now to do a pour over V60 style, I feel like a siphon coffee is just a little bit more intentionally focused on my
Yeah,
coffee.
so
And so it's
and
very
you may
fun.
not know this, and that's okay, but since you went to the
Yeah.
whole coffee class, maybe you'll know, is there something chemically that goes on when you do it that, like, alters the coffee? Like, is it just there's more
Good
oxygen,
question.
or I don't know if you know.
I'm gonna look it up. So hold, but not really hold, because in a second I will know it.
While you're looking at that, I was gonna say this. I
Yeah,
love that
yeah.
our 2% are very, it's like mine's books and yours is
Let's say
coffee, like, that's so perfect.
that's so funny. So it seems to be okay. We're back. It was a millisecond, but it seems to be that the siphon coffee has the different flavor profile, and I could tell you like it does taste different. But I wasn't sure if it's just because I guess like they all taste are going to taste a little bit different because the process is different. But because this is a cloth filter,
Mm.
it tends to be, according to the Googles, it tends to be more delicate, nuanced, and complex with the focus on subtle flavors and aromas. So the French press is more bolder. Yeah, we knew that one. But what about pour over? I don't know. That's a great question. If our cozy detectives know that, let us
Yeah.
know. It also does take longer. So I don't know if maybe, well, it is an immersion coffee as well. So that's going to take different, which is why they would have probably compared that to the French press, because your beans are in with the water versus you're pouring water over beans. So just the dripping through is very
Hmm.
different. But
You'll have to send me
it seems to
a
be,
video of you doing it because I had never
yeah.
had it before, and I'm sure I've seen it done at some point, but I don't know if I've seen it done before, and so now I'm, like, very curious about it.
It's gonna look like I'm Walter White, so just realize that there's nothing scary in it other than coffee
No,
beans,
I love
but
it.
it's intense.
Cute.
It's fun though.
Well, we don't have any 2% cozier from our cozy detectives this week, which is okay. But just a reminder to send that in to us. We love hearing from all of you about the different little cozy things that you're doing. And
Oh.
maybe for this episode, you tell us what you're most excited to incorporate into your winter season and what you're looking forward to as we leave Christmas. You can find us on Instagram at Blanket Fort Files Pod, where you can also submit those 2% coziers. Check us out on YouTube as well for all of our visuals. And wherever you listen to us,
And there's a bonus episode on YouTube too.
yes.
I know. Sneaky,
Yeah,
sneaky.
and this episode is still coming out before Christmas. So if you need some last minute gift ideas, check that out. But do subscribe wherever you find us. It does help us out. Leave us a review as well, preferably a good one. But if you don't have good things to say, that's okay too. And join us next week in the Blanket Fort, where we're going to discuss the coziness of London for Boxing Day.
Yay, our favorite. Always extra cozies in London, to be honest.
Absolutely.